Namaskar. For 70 years, the minorities in India have been enjoying extra benefits at the expense of the long-suffering majority. Is there a perception amongst these pampered minorities that if the BJP comes back in 2024, they will lose all their, pampered benefits? Let's talk to Abhinav Pandya, who has been an expert looking at these things. We all know who Abhinav is. He has been on our channel before. And Abhinav has a theory that there may be something up between now and the elections in 2024. Abhinav, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar. Thank you.
So, Abhinavji, why do you feel that the Islamists, the radical elements, having been, curbed quite a bit with the PFI arrest, even yesterday in Coimbatore, they sealed 4 offices of PFI. I don't know the significance of that. I thought that they would have long fled the area. That's, par for the course for them. Do you feel that there is going to be still some elements embedded inside India that might cause some mischief? Why?
Thank you very much for inviting me, Shri, again for this show. And I really like the show, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I feel that certainly this is looks like a very logical consequence of what is happening in today's India. Because for years, for decades, minorities, especially in India, and the organizations, the so-called extremist organizations, and the fundamentalist organization providing a leadership to minority, they were pampered, they were appeased. And when people say that only a small segment of the minority is like that, well, here, as an academic analyst, I would like to raise a question. Because the thing is that most of these organizations like PFI or even 𝗤𝙗𝘗𝘗, they have massive following among the Muslim community, huge following. So when we say only a small segment, then it has to be taken with a pinch of salt. Certainly, there's a huge following. And for the first time in India, government or the state is taking a serious action against terrorism, radicalization, and extremism. Although the action is not to that degree, not as intense as it needs to be, but still for the first time there is some action being taken. And these people, led by some of their extremist organizations, they feel that if BJP comes to power in 2024, then there is nothing going to stop them, and they will implement all the required legislation like Uniform Civil Code or Population Control Bill, and there will be other stringent measures and a major crackdown on terrorist and radical extremist organizations in India. And they also feel that that ultimately this will lead to Hindu Rashtra in India. This is what they feel. I'm not making a claim on my behalf or on anyone, but this is what they perceive. And they feel that this is the last chance for them, just to uproot BJP from the power and then bring back the people who appease them or who could act on their behalf and just continue the agenda of Islamizing India by 2047. That agenda was going at a rapid pace without any acrimony, without any bitterness until 2014. But after 2014, one feels that, that there's a major break in that agenda. That's why these people are coming out in the open with all the violence and with all the, with this anger. So they will do their best to stop BJP. And how can they do that? They will stage massive protest, street violence, communal riots across the country, in which they will be supported by their global Islamist network, which will help in building the right propaganda against the present government, against India. I guess they are already doing that. They'll be supported by some of the state actors like Turkey, Qatar, and Pakistan, which have been, hands in glove with the radical extremist and terrorist organizations in India. And they will be supported by Khalistanis. So we can also see that already happening in the US, UK, where all these groups, anti-India groups, human rights groups, Khalistanis, etc., they've been targeting Indians. So all this is likely to create a massive pressure on Indian government. This is what they expect, and this will lead to a damage of the global goodwill across in the outside world also. And when the state government, the government in India, will launch a crackdown, reprisal against these protesters, then they feel that that this will kind of elaborate their claims, which they are already making in the world right now, that in India Muslims are facing genocidal conditions. So tomorrow, imagine if there's a massive street protest violence, communal riots before the elections in 2024, and if the state represses these people, then they feel that and if people die in those reprisals, that state action, then they feel that their prophecies, will come true. but actually these are the prophecies for which they are making creating conditions, and they are compelling the state to launch a heavy crackdown. And this, they also expect that this will bring pressure on the Indian people also, and they will feel that through, I mean, that this is going to lead to major violence, and they should vote BJP out of power. So this is a strategy working on multiple, dimensions, like, to terrorize common people by all those Sartan se juda killings, and to force them to just to vote BJP out of power. Secondly, this is working at a diplomatic front by creating an intense or very venomous propaganda and information war against India. Thirdly, by targeting Indian diaspora in the foreign countries, so that they also put pressure on the current government and the Indian state, and then by creating violence. And lastly, adding to my point, in this, the transnational terrorist groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda will also aid them, as we can see that Al Qaeda in Indian subcontinent has already, vowed, to spread its tentacles in India. Ayman al-Zawahiri intervened in that hijab controversy and all. So maybe if there is a street violence next year or close to elections, these transnational terrorist groups will be aiding them in the form of IEDs, or in the form of sporadic bomb blasts, assassinations, or even massive protests across the country.
Abhinav, a couple of things that can go wrong in this narrative. Number one, they tried this hijab thing just before UP elections, and UP was their price catch, and it boomeranged on them. And as a matter of fact, I think BJP benefited from that. Now, the Campus Front of India, which was the main body that was behind this, it stands banned. It is banned. Nobody can say I am a Campus Front of India member and try to regurgitate this. Although the Supreme Court may have given a split verdict about hijab, if you look at that, but if you look at the European Union, which says that it's the exact opposite. So when this goes to a larger bench in Supreme Court, most likely it will also look at what the world is saying. See, everywhere you are going to have people with liberal leanings, left leanings, right leanings, what have you. That's why you have a bench. So the majority wins. So that's all fine. But I'm sure these are pretty smart people. That much I can guess. So if they try to create any more trouble between now and 2024, would that not counterpolarize? And even the most liberal Hindus might also say this is just not worth it. These guys are not listening. Because I'll tell you why. Pulwama, February 2019. Then India responded with Balakot, right? And then in May, they got a even bigger majority. I'm just playing this out. What are your thoughts?
Well, I kind of agree with you and kind of disagree both. Because see, these people, one thing is very clear to them, that the days, the pre-2014 era is not going to come back. When they were actually having marching ahead peacefully and very very smiling, joking manner towards the final goal of Islamizing India by 2047. So that is not going to come back. That is very clear to them. So first priority, if they stage massive violence, protests, etc., diplomatic pressure, try to scare people out. So if this may be a trial strategy, if, for instance, if that really scares people, that if really people think that this is really leading to much problems, and if the government also gets demoralized and gets cornered, and this gets BJP out of power, okay, for a just hypothetical situation, then also it works to the benefit of the Islamist organizations, because which government comes next, that is going to be completely dominated by Islamists, and then they can act with much more brutal force to completely suppress the majority Hindus here, or even the organizations like RSS and all, and just continue forward their agenda of Islamizing India. For instance, if this doesn't happen, and if this polarizes people more, then also it works to their benefit only, because the countries like Turkey, Qatar, and Pakistan, and some of the Western intelligence agencies would want, and they also expect that India gets more and more polarized. And over the next 10 years, you have civil war-like situation in India, with this polarization, communal riots, and internal weakness, going on at a very rapid pace, and India gets split, India gets disturbed. India's march towards this, global power and this world status, it gets completely halted. So in either case, it works to the benefit of the Islamists and the adversarial, countries, and also the Western intelligence agencies, who are really scared of India, just rising to the global stage with India's independent and principled stand on various global matters. So that's also one factor that we need to consider. So in any case, for the next 5 to 6 years, India will have to deal with internal security challenges in a major way.
Abhinav, one thing I want to step in here and point out that the West is no longer keeping quiet about all these things. The Hindus in the West, whether it is United Kingdom or United States, they have found their voice and they are fighting back. By the time this video airs, viewers, you would have seen another live hangout with UN Human Rights Commission for Minorities in Bangladesh, and that will be talking about the resolution being brought in the Congress, United States Congress, by two congressmen. One of them is Ro Khanna, and the other one is Chabot, and Steve Chabot, I think. And they are listing what happened in the 1971 genocide that took place in Bangladesh. So this is going, and it is not trained at anybody else. It is trained squarely at Pakistan. It is also finding fault with the United States government that despite overwhelming evidence, the US government chose to keep quiet. I mean, this is a pretty, I read the resolution. It's pretty strong, Abhinav. Why I'm saying all this is sometimes, you try to overplay your card. The other side also has similar things to do. And now the Hindus are fighting back, and they are fighting back pretty hard. I can also tell you that the Rutgers Institute has come out with a study where it talks about how specific social media platforms are the ones spewing venom. I mean, now we are tracking the specific handles where these guys are putting out all these fake narratives. You can't run and hide anymore. See, what I'm trying to say is, the way that they were able to do it in 2020, 2021, 2022, like Shaheen Bagh and so on, that is not going to happen anymore. In fact, if I calibrate it right, the Indian government now has said enough is enough, and you will see action starting to happen even against the Khalistanis, because they are not going to get a free ticket. I'm already hearing that some of the lumpens have had their OCA cards cancelled. That's a very serious thing, Abhinav. That means they can't come to India anymore. So things are happening, is what I'm trying to say.
It's good, they are happening, and this was bound to happen, because ultimately, how long can you tolerate? So it's actually, when I make this, analysis that they're going to do that, no, I'm not saying that they will be successful. These people, okay, certainly their game plan stands exposed, not only to the government, not only to the intelligence agencies, but to the common people, even the left liberal Hindus in general, and also to all the sane-minded, rational people. Their game plan stands exposed. So they will certainly make an effort, to that effect, just to create subversion, sabotage. But then, as far as the chances of their success are concerned, I really doubt it, because even the state of India, the government has realized all the nature of these threats, and they are getting into an entirely different mode. You can see that madrasas are being bulldozed, which were running centers of Al-Qaeda literature and everything. Okay, previously all these things could happen in India without any checks, without any government authorities scrutinizing these things. But now we see an entirely different India. And this is certainly going to polarize things. Okay, this will lead to frictions also. But ultimately, as far as my firm belief is that India will be able to mount over these challenges. India will be able to control these challenges, and even some of the rational elements in the Muslim community will also realize that that they don't have to come under the influence of these extremists and these illiberal fundamentalist organizations, because I mean, that's not going to lead them to any good way of life. And this is only leading to frictions, and this is only leading to bitterness. But then, yes, before that happens, there will be a period of in which we will see some good action, in the form of riots or attacks or anything, okay, from the Islamist side, and there will be strong state reprisal from the government side, and we should be ready for that.
Yes, indeed. And let's hope and pray that something like that does not take place. India is a big country. It's also a very tolerant country, but that tolerance is being
already happening. Just sorry to intervene, but if you see recently, day before yesterday, only just a few days before, there were major riots in West Bengal. In Bangladesh, we are seeing the idols of Durga being destroyed. Day before yesterday, they again had these sloganeering and protest in Jodhpur, where they were shouting "Sartan se juda." Another fellow Manish was killed. So it is already happening in sporadic manner in various parts of the country. Now the question is that, I mean, what if it happens in a coordinated manner across the multiple cities of India? The question is that. So I'm not getting into the the details of whether this will happen or not. This may happen. It is quite likely. What we need to focus on is that our preparedness, especially of the state intelligence and the state police bodies. Because if this, imagine this Kanhaiya situation happened in Udaipur, and after this Kanhaiya situation happened in Udaipur, that was completely unexpected. In Udaipur is a very remote, very peaceful, sleepy town. No one could imagine that. But I, as an analyst, used to read things in the local newspaper, local Hindi newspapers like Dainik Bhaskar and all that. Even 5 years back, 7 years back, students from my city, they were traveling to Kerala to study in Salafi madrasas and seminaries. And the local administrative officials here, including the collectors and the divisional commissioners, they would go inaugurate those ceremonies where these students going to the Kerala madrasas, where they were being felicitated. They would just cut the ribbons and all, but they could not see beyond that what was actually happening. So they were just disseminating all that radicalizing discourse. The killers of Kanhaiya revealed that they were under the massive influence of Dawat-e-Islam. And since 2013, this fellow who killed Kanhaiya, he made a visit to Pakistan through Bangladesh. That means we can, if we extrapolate that, if we take it a little further, we can imagine that the students, the young Muslim boys from this small, sleepy, remote town were traveling to Pakistan since late 2000s or early 2010, something like that. So ground infrastructure is already ready, but we need to be mentally prepared for that, and we need to take proper preemptive actions. PFI, though it stands banned, but it has sleeper cells, it has small proxy affiliated organizations everywhere in the country. Even in the smallest of the cities, you will find some remote shady organizations with different names associated with PFI.
Is the funding still freely coming into the country for these organizations?
No, they are trying to devise new strategies. Now PFI has gone into the mode of pocket funding because government scrapped their FCRA status. I mean, amended the FCRA status in 2020. So it's not that easy to get foreign funding the way it used to be a very smooth process earlier. So now they are just exploring different modes with the idea of this concept of pocket funding, in which they ask various PFI members and their relatives living in the Gulf to donate and to send money to individual accounts who are the members of PFI or who have sympathies for PFI. Now, whatever money comes to the various, let's say 1,000 individual accounts, or let's say 50,000 accounts, that money is collected in a centralized manner, and then that goes into the PFI fund. They are also getting into smuggling, gold smuggling, and also they are trying different ways just to beat and just to completely bypass this challenge of government regularization of the FCRA statutes.
Well, viewers, that PGurus has been giving you a lot of information from Kerala, which is the laboratory, which is the think tank. That is where most of these things are hatched. Gold smuggling is at an all-time high. The chief minister himself appears to have been involved in that Swapna thing, and the guy still roams free. They say that his son-in-law is an ex-PFI guy, and nothing happens. So we have a lot of things ahead of us that's going to play out. We have to wait and see. Let's hope that for common people, is there anything they can do to stay on alert? I mean, Abhinav, these days everything is camouflaged. What can you do? I mean, in the case of that 𝙒𝙗𝙀, the guy who planned the whole thing was a 15-year-old Islamic Muslim friend.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody known for 15 years. If the guy still harbors feelings of killing you, there's not much you can do, my friend.
Oh, well, it's a very relevant question that you've asked, and I think we should seriously think about this question. Recently, I was lecturing at this Bureau of Police Research and Development. I was lecturing the state police officers of the rank of DSP and above. And they were also asking similar questions, that what can be done. First of all, situational awareness. After all, in every small city, you have Muslim community people living there, for decades, for centuries. Okay. Now one has to monitor what kind of the clerics are visiting that area. What is the discourse going in the community? And the state CID intelligence departments, which are presently in a very dysfunctional shape, in a defunct shape, they need to become very active, and they need to rejuvenate themselves. They need to round up people with suspicious credentials, check their WhatsApp, groups, WhatsApp statuses, what kind of things are prevailing, what kind of money and what amount of money is coming to that district to construct new mosques. Okay? And secondly, I believe that as far as situational awareness is concerned, if there's a slightest suspicion, if people are coming, if one witnesses someone getting radicalized, then one should maintain a distance. One should inform the local police. And if the local police is casual, like it was in the case of Kanhaiya in Udaipur, that the fellow came and reported the local police officer that, well, I'm getting threats, but that fellow said that, no, nothing will happen. You just relax. There's that. No, it was a sheer case of carelessness. No? So if that
Was he
happens, then the
suspended?
matter. Huh?
Abhinav, was he suspended? Was he suspended at least?
At a very lower level, there was some of them was one fellow was suspended, the SHO, but the additional SPs, they went spot free. The SP and IGP, they were simply transferred. Transfer is not punishment. Transfer is not a punishment, and there was no accountability. So this needs to be taken very firmly, and the common citizens, they should rise up against the government and just tell them that if these officers are not doing their duties properly, if they were busy just earning money through corrupt methods, while all these killings were going on, then you need to bring them to task. You need to just take firm action against them. So these are the things which we should. So situational awareness is very important. And then one more thing, see, you can find that there are various mosques in various cities, small cities, where there's a huge collection of weapons, be it stones, be it like knives, daggers, swords, okay, and even firearms. So you can find that. But if you talk to the state police people, they will say that, well, we cannot go to that particular area. We cannot go to the Ajmer Dargah area because, it's very risky, politically very sensitive, and people have arms. They will start shooting at us. Certainly, as far as the combat training of the state police forces are concerned, it's in a very bad shape. But then you cannot leave those areas as ungoverned territories. There are many ungoverned territories. Let me tell you, in small cities of India, near Kota, there's this one place where I don't remember the name. There's this huge, massive factory of weapons manufacturing, and mostly these extremist organizations like PFI and some of the other Muslim extremist organizations. They have a huge penetration. Police cannot dare to go in that area. So these areas will be the hotspots if in future any kind of massive communal rioting or nationwide protest or killings come up. Then these areas will be the hotspot providing weapons and all. So as what we can do at this stage is that the state police forces, they can take a massive action against these areas. They can raid these areas. They can apprehend the main coordinators, preemptive arrests. Those things can be done. And even the common people should improve their, I'm not saying that they should carry weapons and arms, but definitely as far as combat training is concerned, unarmed combat and armed combat, they should brace up themselves. Because see, this fellow, when Kanhaiya was killed, those fellows came, they just, slit his throat with a knife. If the state police CID wanted, they could have deputed their people, in CVs and carrying small weapons, but they did not do. So the common people, common citizenry, they will have to come up and, they will have to just, at least gear up themselves through some kind of armed or unarmed combat training and, and face and fight these, extremist terrorists.
Well, speaking of WhatsApp groups, there was one WhatsApp group called Green Light among the police officers of Kerala. And this was brought to the attention of the Director General of Police of Kerala by the National Investigating Agency when they did the Operation Octopus. And they told that 873 members were there in that WhatsApp group, and they were all having PFI connections. I'm still waiting to hear what the Kerala government has done with them. These are all treasonous activities, in my opinion. They should be dealt with. The least they should be done is dismissed from service with criminal cases against all of them. If the NIA has identified them to be PFI sympathizers and the PFI is banned, that's a bad thing for these people, don't you think?
Of course, and this is not something new. In Kashmir, we saw that Jamaat-e-Islami cadres, Jamaat-e-Islami sympathizers made heavy penetration into the state police, state intelligence, state academia, state administration, civil services. So this is a nationwide problem. Okay? But unfortunately, as you mentioned that they've been caught arrested in Kerala, state governments tend to protect them. They tend to defend them. And this is all about interagency, center-state rivalries. And the action is very perfunctory. It's very superficial, long charge sheets and long delayed processes of investigation, inquiry, arrest. But no, practically speaking, these things don't lead to much, something very substantial, and like even if they are dismissed, I don't know when comes the final, the announcement of the, the sentence or a punishment. That takes a very, very long time. Okay? So, but yeah, certainly we do need to take a very strong actions against such people, and also enhance our counterintelligence to weed out such elements in the police departments and the security forces, intelligence agencies of various other states that are in India.
Abhinav, one of the subject matter experts who came on my channel said that it was a CRPF which went with the NIA to swoop down on all the PFI people who were hiding in Kerala. No state police was involved. State police was just informed an hour before. So like 3 a.m. they were informed. At 4 a.m. the scoop up had happened. Everybody was, scooped up. So anyway, so what I'm trying to say is what you're saying is right, but this is no way to run a government. Law and order, if this is where the state government, the regional parties want to run the law and order, then seriously something is wrong with these parties. That's all I can say. Thank you very much, Abhinav. We'll wait and see how things play out. And let's hope that India stays safe and stay safe, my friend. This is we are now in the middle of a very dark period until at least some clarity emerges in the next year or so. So thank you very much.
And I guess that, even if it's some kind of a face-off, some kind of a massive, situation, a serious situation, then we should not be scared of it. Finally, I'm glad that India is dealing with this quote-unquote Muslim question. See, after 1,000 years, 1,200 years of stay in India, they have to make a choice. They have to decide that whether they want to completely integrate, just and neglect and just reject these extremist separatist leaders and tendencies, and integrate with this country. Now the time has come where we need to deal with this question in a frontal manner, we have to deal with it head on, and then come out with a solution. And it's happening. So even if there is some issue, some problem, some kind of a situation where some kind of action is seen, then we should be mentally prepared for that. Ultimately, this will lead to something very good.
Thank you very much, Abhinav, and namaskar.
Namaskar.